everyone. My name is Ken Clark, and I'm the editor of Hardware and Building Supply Dealer magazine. And you are watching the HBS Dealer one-on-one video series. This is a new program in which we talk to business leaders about the industry and about their business. And it's as simple as that. And this, our first episode, we're lucky to have with us Heath Ashenfelter. Heath is the Executive Vice President and Chief Merchandising Officer of Appleton, Wisconsin-based Fleet Farm. He's been with Fleet Farm for about 3.5 years, and his resume is very impressive. He spent 7 years with True Value Corp, including a role as Vice President and Chief Merchandising Officer. He also spent 10 years with the Scott's Miracle-Gro Company. And at the turn of the century, he began his career at Stein's Garden and Home in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Heath, welcome to the one-on-one video series.
Thanks, Ken, for having me. I appreciate it.
Fleet Farm has more than 50 stores in the upper Midwest, founded in 1955. The customer base on your website describes very clearly as the active outdoor suburban and farm communities. That describes a lot of us, most of us, in fact. The company's tagline is built for real life. And kind of the unofficial tagline, the unofficial slogan is, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Can you tell us about Fleet Farm and what our readers might not know, Heath?
Yeah, we actually recently changed our tagline to proudly serving the Midwest since 1955. And, we did that largely because, one, we're proud of our heritage. We're proud of the fact we've been in business for that long. And we are, unabashedly Midwestern proud. So we've been serving the farm community for a long time. And a whole lot more. I think, one of the things that I think a lot of folks may not know about Fleet Farm, particularly if they're not in the Midwest, is that, we're all things farm. After all, it is in our name, of course, but, our stores have multiple divisions. And, so we're in the sporting goods business, we're in pet, hardware, home consumables, grocery, clothing and footwear, automotive, seasonal and holidays. And a lot of our stores also have automotive service centers, so where you get new tires, oil changes. Most of our stores have convenience stores, gas stations, as well as car washes. So we are we fancy ourselves as a one-stop shop. Our strategy is really focused on this really wide, eclectic mix of stuff under one roof, lots of breadth and depth, and really, really good value as well.
Hearing you describe all that, is there anything that you're not in?
Honestly, it's tough to find things that our customers are really interested in that we're not in. We're focused right now on just strengthening the categories that we're in and the businesses that we've deemed as dominant categories. But there's not a lot of businesses that we're looking necessarily, at least in product, to enter. It's really much more about just strengthening what we're already in.
So that kind of leads us to the next question, which has to do with kind of this category of farm and ranch. You might bristle at the idea of inserting Fleet Farm into that kind of tight category, but can you just talk about that rural retailer sector in general and kind of the definition of farm and ranch? Do you think of yourselves that way? And
I think overall, and that's a question I've heard more than once before. I think overall the channel itself is doing well. It's a channel that doesn't necessarily have really clear definition, however. I think across the national players within the space and regional players, those specifically focused on the farm business, the category of the channel generally seems to be performing quite well. When I think about the meaning of farm and ranch, specifically speaking about Fleet Farm, we are definitely focused on the rural customer. Not just the owners of farms, even though we are very explicitly focused on the farmer. I think the channel overall is winning because customers can get a lot of items on their weekly shopping trip. And that trip assurance is something that is important, for our customers in rural communities. And certainly because of the pandemic, that has been exacerbated even more. Customers are looking for ease of shopping and a number of other things that, if we talk about the pandemic, we can talk about their, we're focused on that. So, I think, I think the channel in general, it's also reasonably easy to do business with. It's very approachable from a customer standpoint. In some cases, certainly in our case and some of our competitors, offers a really wide mix of product and generally at pretty good values, things that Midwestern folks find very appealing.
You mentioned the pandemic. Everybody's talking about it. We do want to talk about the pandemic, but also about the farm and ranch sector. A lot of people think farm and ranch and immediately think of Tractor Supply and its 1,000 stores. It's always in the headlines. It's on the stock market. But there's a lot of also mom and pops in the business, right? In the rural communities. Are you seeing more farm and ranch type stores kind of combine, consolidate, grow? You have to be large to compete in this space. And with 50 stores, do you think that's the right size for Fleet Farm?
Well, I think, one, Tractor Supply obviously is the big player in the space, and they've done a wonderful job of growing. They're a formidable competitor to all of us that are in the space that they're in, unquestionably. There are, particularly in the upper Midwest and down through really the gut of the United States, there are a lot of other viable, more regional, let's call them farm and ranch players, even though a good number of folks in this space do have a somewhat diverse mix of product. And I think that really for a lot of retailers is the key. There's been a lot of changes in customer shopping habits over the course of certainly the last year, but even prior to the pandemic, that has made this channel very viable. And I think a number of things, the customer shifting to living more rural or being comfortable living more rural. It's the inverse of what we saw years ago, where a lot of people were going into urban cores, and now we're seeing more people go out into rural marketplace. That makes the farm and ranch channel obviously more appealing. I think there are certain product categories that have become more popular. For instance, like just simply like chickens, like the idea of having hobby farms, even in more suburban neighborhoods, is a bit of a phenomenon that has helped fuel the business. Those are just some examples that I've seen and that we've seen over the course of the last couple of years. I don't think the number of stores that we have is right as of today. I mean, we're approaching 50 stores. I think ultimately there is definitely more room for growth. We believe that there are a lot of markets in the United States that could use a Fleet Farm, and we're focused on that. And in addition to growing store count over the course of time, we're also focused on growing our e-commerce business, which is something that I'm certainly quite proud of where we've come from so far, but there's a lot of opportunity for growth there as well. And also got to be cognizant at the same time of the stores we do have and opportunities for improvements in our what we'll call legacy markets. And so those are growth levers for us, new stores, optimizing the stores that we have today, as well as, of course, accelerating growth within our e-commerce space. But Ken, to answer your question, we have much room to grow. You got Tractor Supply, the big player, a lot of very viable regional players within the space, and then you still have a lot of mom and pops. And I think there's room for all of us to operate. And I think the pie itself is big enough for there to be a fairly high degree of competition within the space. And the reality is, the more rural you go, there are markets where a Fleet Farm or a Tractor Supply or any number one of our competitors may not go. And that opens up the door for a lot of the smaller, let's call them mom and pop farm and ranch retailers.
Well, you touched on the growing appeal of rural America, and that brings us back, I think, in some ways to the pandemic, which is credited toward pushing folks out of the city to get a little more space and fresh air out in the country, which certainly would benefit the sector. Can you talk about how the pandemic has affected Fleet Farm in general?
Yeah, I think besides that shift to more rural America from the cities, I think early on there was a pretty significant and dramatic shift to e-commerce, and customers expected easier pickup than what a lot of retailers in the channel had prior to the pandemic. That has continued, but the brick and mortar visits have increased substantially since the height of the pandemic last year. So when it hit, a lot of folks decided they didn't want to go out, they didn't want to visit retail stores, so they started shopping online more. A lot of those retail trips have definitely come back. it also forced us, and I would say a lot of our competitors as well, to be very nimble and quick to reacting to customers' needs. And I think that, in a sense, like the pandemic forced us to get better faster. It also confirmed that our customers really like BOPUS. And I think the reality is that buying online and picking up in store is something that was becoming more popular pre-pandemic. I think it's even more evident today that our customers like to shop that way, particularly with big, bulky, freight-intensive goods. You know, what customers have bought, like what they put into their shopping carts, you know, has also changed. So, you know, last year we saw massive spikes in home improvement. The number of projects that the average home was doing grew substantially last year because, let's face it, more people were home, more people were working from home, so they just did more around the house. You know, we're seeing pet growing, which is really fueled just simply by, you know, the growing number of pet owners in the country. Sporting goods, hunting and fishing in particular, like participation in those categories grew substantially last year. And then really just the seasonal business and lawn and garden in particular really grew last year. Again, more people home, investing in their homes. And so I would also say, like, not just investing in their homes themselves, but in also investing on things that they like to do in the home. So whether that's playing games, whether it's cooking, baking, the housewares category, consumables, grocery, all really strong last year in particular. And those categories, you know, have remained strong this year because I think what happened across the board is that people decided to fish, they decided to hunt, they decided to garden, they decided to do more baking at home, and all those categories have continued to be strong for us. I think the other thing that just the pandemic taught, I mean, what I wouldn't say taught us, but there is no doubt that the pandemic has put a strain on the supply chain, whether it is vendors that were closed for a while last year, labor shortages, transportation across both international and domestic, and really just overall, like, continued exceptional demand are really, that along with a number of other factors, are straining inventory levels. So it's not necessarily the good part of the pandemic, but the reality is that the supply chain continues to be a bit stressed across the board.
Great answer, Heath. You've been very generous with your time. We've got another question here about technology, however. Is it fair or unfair to kind of think of that the farm and ranch sector is behind the times in terms of technology in the rural America? But we see at Fleet Farm some of the new programs that you're introducing. The rewards program recently came out, and you've got some very strong email marketing campaigns. Just can you talk about the role technology is playing in what you're doing there at Fleet Farm?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off and just give you a sense of some of the things that we've been working on, and then I'll relay how it plays into technology, because you'll see a good dose of technology in a lot of this. You know, I think in terms of product itself, you know, we've been focused on driving brands and doubling down on the categories that mean the most to the Fleet Farm shopper. So over the past couple of years, we've rolled out new firearms displays. We've moved to larger Milwaukee and DeWalt power tool sets, an entirely new tool storage assortment, which has been a big winner for us. We've dropped in new hardware departments with Hillman. So we've done a lot in store to increase the presence of the brands that our customers really want the most. We've also revamped our private label portfolio, taking a portfolio of over 50 brands that quite honestly were a bit old and dated, and have reworked them all, new branding, new logos, new packaging that will continue to roll out to our customers in the coming weeks and months. Line reviews were a big initiative back in late 2018. Those continue to modernize our assortment. We do over 50 of those a year. And that really allows the team to focus on the customer more than anything. So a big time focus on breadth and depth, making sure that that eclectic mix of product is evident in our assortment and we're providing the right value to our customers. Late last year, we launched a new home services program called Service Finder. This is basically where our customers can partner with local professionals to get their home improvement projects done. We launched a new program recently called Backcountry Adventures, which is a service where our customers can buy really high quality hunting and fishing trips. That's a new venture that just launched a few weeks ago. I mentioned e-commerce, and you want to start talking about technology. There is a big and continued lean in on our e-commerce business that really honestly, like I would say here, Ken, we were probably a bit behind, and we've been working our tails off the last year or so, and certainly will in the near term, to catch up and to provide an experience on our e-commerce site and our, whether the customer wants us to ship it to them or they're coming into the store to pick it up. I wouldn't say we've fully caught up, but we're getting back. We're getting there quick. But that's going to be a continued area of focus for us. You know, I'd say just the focus on integrated marketing, including the launch of a new app. So again, here's technology that you think about the omni-channel journey at Fleet Farm, like we were short of an app. And that is clearly how a lot of our customers want to interact with Fleet Farm, both in the store and when they're just searching for product. And the new app ultimately it's what we would consider the last mile of the omni-channel journey, because we interact with our customer in a number of different ways. But if you think about integrated marketing and the way that we talk to our customers, like we're on the radio, you know, we do email, you know, we do lots of digital marketing, fully functioning website. I'll talk about the loyalty program in a minute, but the app was the last mile. And so bringing that to the party allows us to interact with our customers and make sure that we're telling the big themes, the big stories, whether those are brands, whether those are things like new product offerings or events that we're running, allows us to bring those to market across all of the vehicles that we have at our disposal. And then you mentioned the Fleet Farm loyalty program. It's called Fleet Rewards, launched late April, highly successful so far. And what's really most exciting about this is it's going to allow us to better understand our customer, which I think at the end of the day, it will create sales opportunities for us. But the big benefit is to better understand our customers so we can interact with them in a way that's more personalized to their lifestyle, which is something that historically we have not been able to do. And so you see across all of those, the app, you know, the e-commerce business, Fleet Rewards, technology plays into all of those. And even things like home services and backcountry adventures, you know, those are, the platform is digital ultimately, as well as some in-store signage. And that's the way that we connect and we talk to a lot of our customers. So in a very long-winded way, the number of things that we're doing at Fleet Farm is pretty significant. It's clearly a business that is in transformation, which is exciting. But there is no doubt that a lot of our biggest initiatives over the last year or two have needed a high dose of technology to get them done. And you'll see more of that coming in the next few months and into next year with some of the new things that we're going to roll out.
Excellent, Heath. There's a lot there to keep you busy, a lot of boxes to check off in the in the coming months and years.
That's right.
Thank you so much for participating in our HBS Dealer one-on-one video series. Heath, you're a fantastic guest. You set a very high bar. And on behalf of the folks here at HBS Dealer and our audience, the next time we're in Appleton, we're going to stop in and buy something from your stores. So there you have it. Thanks again.
And thanks for having me.
And thanks everybody for watching.